We're the Freedom School interns. We're the Freedom Scholars. Being from Mississippi had a big deal with me wanting to join it, just because I've always been curious about the history of the state. It's where I grew up and it's home to me. So learning about the history, even if it is kind of a very dark aspect of the state's history, has been interesting to me.
I'm a history major who has a focus and an aspiration to be in documentary and audiovisual filmmaking and stuff like that. So when I had the opportunity to take that on here at the Museum of American History, I kind of hopped on it.
Well, education is really important to me, and my role at the Freedom School is as the education lead. So I've been working with a lot of education materials and thinking about how to best teach the civil rights movement to students, and so I think that that was really important to me.
This is a group of us here working together to put on this youth summit happening in Mississippi next year. We've gone through plenty of readings and watched plenty of documentaries to broaden our spectrum of knowledge on the actual freedom summer in Mississippi in 1964.
We've also talked to a lot of civil rights activists and interviewed them, and that's also really helped us to deepen our understanding because we've been able to interact with them and hear firsthand accounts of what the civil rights movement was like, and especially what the Freedom Summer was like.
Just thinking about general advice to give to the youth today, what's some advice you'd give them in staying involved in social movements?
If I were to try to summarize some thoughts in terms of encouragement, don't forget that intolerance still exists and is growing.
Everything I learned about the civil rights was just like the very tip of the iceberg. Because I mean, so many people think that it was kind of this glorious movement that happened quickly and Martin Luther King was in charge of it and it was all kind of the march of progress, whereas we kind of learned that it was a much deeper struggle. It involved so many more people than just Martin Luther King and like the leadership figures you think of, that it was this very broad movement, a national movement, and that young people were really kind of the spearhead to it. It was college kids who were like our age were the ones who were leading and organizing sit-ins in like Nashville and Greensboro.
Yeah, I think I've actually learned what a grassroots movement is through all the things that we read so far. Like before we hear about it and you have an idea what you think it might be, but from actually reading firsthand experiences, like you know what a grassroots movement is and you have to respect what it actually has turned out to be. So,
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the learning aspect to it. We learn a lot, we read a lot, we've been able to interact with some of the museum staff, like the people who acquired the Greensboro lunch counter, and different curators kind of learn about the museum's collection and what they have about civil rights. And it's kind of a very broad education about not only the civil rights movement, but education, social justice, and kind of the face of advocacy for modern civil rights issues. So I've enjoyed that a lot.
I think I've enjoyed the interviews pretty much more than anything.
We believed that the only way that the Jewish community could be safe from persecution was if we were in a society where discrimination and persecution weren't possible. That's the only way to be safe.
So it falls back on this idea that equality it's not a race thing, it's a human thing. If it wasn't blacks, it's going to be a different group. It's going to be the Japanese in the West. It's going to be other Native Americans in the country. So.
Meeting Bob Moses that night at the Busboys and Codes was one of the coolest things I think we could have done, and interviewing like Larry Rubin and stuff like that. So.
Well, it's one thing to like read about it in a story or hear about it from like a plaque in a museum, but it's another thing to have someone like actually tell the story and be able to express what it was like for them to be there and what they felt. So
be able to see their emotions in like real time.
Yeah.
Really awesome.
That's a good way to kind of symbolize and show students and young people and visitors to the museum kind of about the story of prisons in the South and the way that they were used in the civil rights movement.
It goes a lot beyond the civil rights movement. I mean, the prisons became a reincarnation of the slave plantations. I mean,
Everyone knows my favorite thing was meeting Macklemore, but I thought that that was cool because it enabled us to bring in kind of someone who's seen as a modern day civil rights activist and engage in a conversation and dialogue about the differences between the civil rights movements now and the civil rights movement in historical memory.